but yeah. Oh.
There we go. Well, I want to record it because you say you're lucky. And, whenever you look at someone who says they're lucky, a lot of times they're not actually just lucky. They're
Oh,
also talented in certain areas. And so,
oh,
uh, so the writing area you're talented in, we know that. So let's talk about you don't have to be modest. Um, I think you've gotten the reader's
I
vote
have
of confidence.
yes.
Okay, so
It's
we
it's
agreed on
it's
that.
yeah. We won't discuss my issues with calling myself very. I'm not a bad writer. I'm quite confident that I am a competent writer. I just don't think I am a great writer. Because
Do you
and
want
that's
to be? I mean, is that like one of you just want to get better and better until you
yeah.
can?
No. I mean, it's I can see, how far I am away from the people who, win awards and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, that's a goal. I can see how these various people can do humor or whatever better, right? And so, it's just things that you work towards throughout your career, which is fine with me. I'm in no hurry in the sense that
You can enjoy
it's
the journey.
yeah, I can enjoy the journey. I know I've got things to improve and I will improve. But knowing that I need to improve means that I will, I guess. At least that's the way that my brain works.
So here's a question for you. Do you picture a time where you won't feel like you need to improve your writing?
No,
Okay, me neither. That's what I think is like, real writers are always like, well, but I could push that boundary or I could push that boundary or
I can get better at this aspect. Yeah. No, I mean there's always something that will I do martial arts. I relate a lot of stuff to that. It's I know I'm better than a rank beginner kind of thing. I know it sometimes takes a bit to realize exactly how good I've gotten, but I can also compare myself, and I do compare myself to, the real masters, in my opinion, who kick my ass,
so
left, right, and center, and
so how
literally
often do you do that?
play with people who are much better than me
Compare
very
yourself.
regularly.
Okay. Okay.
It's, but yeah. Anyway, let's move away from that because we're supposed to talk about business. No,
Well,
I mean,
but this is the art side of it, right? And this
yeah,
is the important part to the business is that we don't just sit down at the computer, type, and say, yeah, it's a book. Here, we're putting it out, right? We're always doing work.
yeah.
Um,
It's
and
always something. I mean, I lean more towards people like Dean Wesley Smith's or Rush's opinions about the fact that if the more that you write, in a more variety of things, the better you will get, right? Rather than taking the same work and reworking it 100 times, I would personally prefer to take and write 100 different works. I think especially for myself, and this is a very personal feel, I get better at doing, right? And I mean, when I say I write 100 works, it means I will edit those works, but I'm not going to edit them 100 times, right? It just doesn't work for me. Um, but for me, I feel like writing 100 works gives me a different viewpoint each time I'm trying to tackle something. And I might come back to the same story idea and try to tackle it again in a different way because I'm not happy with the way I wrote that the first time. But I think as we get older ourselves, as we change, what we write and how we write should change, right? Um, I certainly have things that I write about more even now than I would have even 5 or 6 years ago, right? Just life experiences, the world has shifted, and then, compared to 2 decades ago, the young, bouncy me, much more than that. But anyway, Yeah,
Yeah, I used to be very idealistic. Now I'm only somewhat idealistic. All right, someone else is coming in. Um, and it definitely informs what I write.
yeah.
Um, Trying to get back to that, write a character who is as idealistic as I used to be, like naively so. It's kind of fun revisiting that old me, but it can be tough, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I could write the same
I don't think you
level.
can always write it
No,
exact same way.
it's and yeah, well, partly because I am the writing that I looked at some of my earlier writing. I was just like, oh my God, I was trying to recover it. And it's like, okay, I could probably publish this. No, I couldn't. No one's seeing this. Good Lord. This is so bad.
Hi, Isabella.
Uh,
We got a late start. I don't know whether there was a glitch or
Mm.
whether it's the 4th of July weekend and everyone is late. And we're talking about balancing the writing and the business side.
mm,
And we were talking about the writing is part of the business side, right? How you do it, how you approach it, your perspective on it, right? And if you want to spend 30 years writing the perfect book versus, letting yourself learn work by work. So I remember you're a pretty new writer. So do you have a perspective on
Right.
that?
Um, yeah, so yeah, actually I also don't have much experience. As you mentioned, yeah, you remember perfectly. Yeah, I'm quite new and um yeah, I don't know. I think in a way like my PhD helped me to have that mindset, like publish or perish, or something like that. That said, yeah, actually, thanks to this SF Nebula conference, I had some feedback on the novel that I'm trying to publish, and I realized also there's, I need to work on that a bit more. I don't know how big is that bit, but uh, yeah, so I'm trying to figure out what to do, but I guess what I would try to do as soon as I'm a bit stable with my life now is giving a deadline. Like maybe it doesn't have to be like a very hard deadline because it's something that I decide, but I will try to give me a deadline. Like by this time, I want to finish the revision and maybe break down a little bit and then start again. Yeah, I will think if going with the traditional publishing or the indie like way of like the self promoting. Yeah, so far I'm writing some short stories that I hope I can use for promoting. So I feel that's part of my business. How I want to do it,
mm.
although it takes again, it's a balance. So it takes time from if I do some short story, I'm not working my main novel. So,
So I'm
but
going to
I
talk
think,
about that in terms of feedback. Like that's another part
mm,
of the business, right? When do you get your feedback? Some people wait until they're happy with the book, and some people actually create a feedback loop for themselves from early on. So it sounds like
mm,
you got some really good feedback at the conference. Do you have any mechanism because this is a good way to set a deadline, not that you have to do it, but you have people who you're like, okay, I want your feedback on this and I will get it to you by, and then you have the ticking clock, right? So
right.
have that in place at all?
Um, so in this chance, I just did at the for the beginning of my novel. So there was just the time before the nebula. But yeah, I guess also one advice that I received from others is just using like a professional beta reader so that you can control, this the timing of usually I saw on internet they give like I don't know, 7 days or 2 days sometimes. I don't know how they do, but
Is that someone you pay?
someone you pay.
I'm kind of on the fence about that, but I've been in the business for a long time. How do you feel about that, Tom?
Paying for edits or
No,
paying
she's talking
for
about beta readers, like
beta
getting
readers.
feedback.
Oh, I don't use beta readers anymore. I this My problem with beta readers was I was pooling beta readers from readers, right? Um, and even though first time I went did beta readers, there was no, I just said, hey, give me your feedback, and then I got either no feedback or very little useful feedback. I eventually started getting questionnaires set up for beta readers to send back to me. And again, it didn't. A lot of times they either didn't answer the questionnaires or they didn't answer them in a way that was useful to me. And so I've given up on using beta readers.
How do you get your feedback, or do you not give
I
it
get
yourself?
professional edits, and that's it. I pay for my
But you
editors.
do edits,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
okay.
I'll edit myself, and then I will send it to a professional editor, and then a proofreader, generally also after that, and then it goes out. So
And how much pushback do you get from, or suggestions do you get from your professional editor?
depends on what area. Like there's a lot of copy and line edits that I get I get feedback
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Not a lot on the structure or pacing. That's not, that's not their job. That's not what they're being paid for. Occasionally, if there's something glaring, they'll point it out. But there's not a lot of, or there's sometimes, if there's a pacing issue, they'll give it that. So I don't really do a lot of dev editing. What I do for dev editing actually is every year or so, and actually I need to do it soon. I'll hire a dev editor for one of my work. And I'll hire it for something that I've actually published or will publish very soon. And so when I give it to them, I will specifically tell them, this is going to be published. I want you to edit it with an eye towards what I can fix or what I'm lacking for future books. So this is not going to change. This is good. Tell me what I need to fix for future work. So if I am not developing a character and why, they can tell me that, and why I'm falling back on certain tropes or whatever, they can help me with that. But it won't change the book that I'm putting out. And I don't, yeah. And that's just the way that I prefer to work on that. Partly because for a long time I was putting out a lot of books very fast. So, I couldn't wait. The market I
Can I
was
ask, did you do that on your first book?
no, my first few books had no dev editing at all.
Okay. And did you have any like readers giving you feedback or anything?
On my
Or did you just put them out?
my first books actually went up on a free reading site, Royal Road at that time. It's a free serial
Okay.
site.
Mhm.
I was literally just writing and posting it for fun, purely for fun. So I got some feedback from people. Some of the feedback I had that I didn't understand until much later. And that's, I think, something that I'm sure some of you all have experienced that. I don't, I found some of the feedback that I was getting or people comments in reviews and whatnot, I didn't understand until I was 800,000 words in, nearly 1 million words in. And I'm like sitting there going, oh, that's what they meant. Or I'm beginning to look at my older work and going, that's what I'm missing. This is where I have a gap in it. And I don't think, for me at least, I couldn't see the problems until I'd written so much that I could start seeing the gaps. And that's, again, that's the way I came across it.
And so, and that's a way to do it, like the Royal Road, because that is, I would consider that a feedback process. where you are actually putting it out there and readers are either reading it, not reading it, commenting on it, you know, thumbsing it up or whatever they do, I would consider that a feedback process.
It was, I mean, there was definitely comments, but I stopped reading them after a while because, yeah,
Mhm.
online cesspool is, you know, uh, I think that's my
If you
main
started
concern.
getting 0 readers, like if
That would,
people
yeah,
dropped off, you'd know you'd lost something, right?
yeah, and
Somewhere. I'm
that's,
not saying you ever had that happen. But I'm just saying it's a very raw feedback mechanism in
yes,
some ways.
yeah,
It's
in
like, okay,
numbers
I
and
lost
everything.
them. I need to back up and figure that out. And then you were saying editor, which is we were talking about
Yeah,
the process
developmental
of getting
editors.
feedback for your work before you put it out. And the developmental editors are the ones who look at the structure. So often, and this is something to know if you're going to hire somebody, is a developmental editor is generally not going to touch your language. They're not going to go in for, you know, like if they see a, you know, punctuation problem, they might mark it, but that's not their job.
Yeah.
They're looking at, okay, I hate this character. This is why I hate this character. Or, you know, if you want me to like this character, you're going to have to do this, or they make big picture suggestions. They're really useful. Um, but they also can be hard to deal with.
The other problem with dev editors is that every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there hangs a shingle for editing. And so, I mean, actually, not just dev editor, just any type of editor. There's so many people hanging the shingles for it. And dev editing to me is such a tricky process because it's so personal too. You need someone who's really experienced, who can separate the fact that what you're trying to do with what they personally don't like. Um, and that can be tricky, right? And if you're writing in something that's a bit weird, or not too normal, they can impose their vision on something that isn't right for that subgenre, that genre, that particular plot technique that you're using, you know. And so, yeah,
So this is the big problem. And this is, you just hit the problem with feedback from anybody, which is, especially if you're getting feedback from a writer, a lot of editors or writers, is they tell you either what they would do because they can't separate it from your book, or they tell you what genre the genre rules are, or what readers are going to expect. And, you know, sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. So you always you have to own your own. Like, so if you're like, nope, I think you're wrong. But the reason I asked you about the paid editor or paid beta readers is it's really annoying to pay somebody to get really nothing useful as feedback. So you have to be really careful on that.
yeah, with any of it, yeah, I mean, it's tricky too because when you're starting out, you don't know if you're gonna get the feedback that you need, and not all the sites are. You know, I went through Royal Road, and as you said, it can be very good feedback, whether it's your blurb, your cover, your start. I mean, if your first chapter you get a lot of views, but you get nothing on your second chapter, you know you've got a problem uh, in that, right? And it might not tell you why, though Royal Road will tell you why.
Do
Sometimes
they
it's not the right,
really?
huh?
Oh, they won't be right. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna sometimes it won't be right. But you know, they'll voice their opinions. But not all sites like Royal Road's great for lit RPG, progression, fantasy, cultivation. You can maybe do sci-fi through there, though it's iffy. Um, a lot more basic fantasy works better than plain sci-fi. But even then, I'm like, if you're writing hard sci-fi or something really esoteric, and that's not the place for you, right? These are very basic readers in the sense that they read web novels, they read translated works, you know, they want something that's it's not literary sci-fi kind of readers. So you have to go in there kind of knowing that. So
But it's, you know, it's something we haven't really thought about as a feedback mechanism. If you don't want to spend money or you just want to test something, like if you're really literally throwing spaghetti against the wall to see if you want to continue with it. I've never had a story like that. I always want to write all my stories. So I've never had anything I was willing to like let people savagely mutilate or completely ignore. But I like the idea of being able to do that. So
yeah,
Jeffrey, are you Jeffrey Yen? How do you pronounce it?
Jeffrey Chen, yeah.
Jeffrey Jen. Okay.
So
So
geeky.
where are you in your business writing journey?
I am I published one book with a small co-op publisher, and my second book is in production, uh, and I'm working on some other things as well. So
are they standalones or series or?
it's a part of a series, the two that are in the works. So it's part of a long series that's under development, and
Okay.
yeah.
How's it done? Do you mind?
Pardon?
How's it done? Do you mind
How's
answering?
it done in what sense?
The first book.
Financially,
So uh, I paid for development and editing. I found a really good editor for that. Somebody I took a class from, and I really liked the way she taught the class. She's a local person, and I hired her to do development edits, and she's very, very good. So I've been relying on her to give that kind of feedback. I started off with Reedsy editors, and it was really mediocre. So I'm sort of happy that I moved to somebody much stronger there.
Yeah, if you
I
found your person, treat her well.
Yes, I also have, of course, the editors at the co-op. So we co-publish each other's books, and so I work editing on their books. They work on editing on my book, and they're very good. So I'm also getting a lot of.
Which co-publisher is this? Do you mind saying?
It's a it's a co-op called Untimely Books out of Colorado.
Oh, I
Mine
like the name.
mine was the first book the co-op published, my first one, and now they're up to about 10 books.
And so you're co-oping the marketing as well
Yes,
and the business side.
yes,
So
it's a learning process all the way across. Yeah, yeah.
okay.
yeah, I mean, I think it's nice sometimes to have friends to help with it, or colleagues.
I think what I've noticed is that people who are fully indie have more control over the marketing end of it. You know, like being able to do giveaways and fluctuate the price around and those kinds. Although that may be in the dust in terms of the actual, I don't know what it actually comes through in terms of what its impact is on total sales, but
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do giveaways or anything like that until you've got a series running, like at least 3 to 5 books out. Just because you make your money back on the read throughs, right? So if you don't have anything for people to read through afterwards, it doesn't help a lot unless you're adding them to your mailing list. And then when you and the nice thing about working with a co-op is if you guys are publishing roughly the same types of books, you can start pooling together a nice big mailing list.
yeah.
One thing we've done with my books and anyone that we're publishing, I run a sort of publishing house. It's mostly me and my co-authors, but I'm basically making everyone write a bonus epilogue nowadays. And what it is that we have the end, if you want to read more about whatever character or what it is, click here on this. It clicks them over to a book funnel landing page where they have to give us an email to go and keep reading about it. And that this bonus epilogue. And that's how you get an ad to your, mailing list, and it works really well. Like our conversion rate on that is probably somewhere in the 3 to 5% rate, compared to like less than 1%, with just a hey, add yourself to a mailing list kind of thing. And so if you get enough people coming through and reading your book, and giveaways are great for that because you get thousands of people reading it. You can start building up a mailing list. And if everyone in your co-op does that, and you have a centralized mailing list, you can start adding to it.
Has the co-op decided if they're going to do a newsletter together as the co-op, or are you each
Rob is
individually?
already doing a newsletter, so I also take part in doing the newsletter as well. So
Right, exactly. So you guys get to try different things. I love that idea about the.
Yeah.
yeah, it's very experimental, but it's a huge learning curve also. So yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is just you can't do everything all at once. I'll tell you that, even though I keep trying and then I just fall on my face and I'm like, why did I do that? But yeah, sometimes you try something and it works really, really well. I had my books were doing very well, selling each other from my back matter for quite a while, but I haven't updated my back matter in like 5 years. I kind of had some issues. And I'm going to redo all my books, back matter and everything. And I'm thinking of how to find, like you're saying, a new reader magnet. Because what I basically have is something that is public. It's like a so Mary Shelley. I write historical romance, fantasy, YA. I write a couple different things, and mystery, and she's written one of each thing. So I was just basically taking her, no longer copyrighted material, because I thought it was cool. Like, everybody knows Frankenstein, but they don't know the other things she did, and giving it away. But it's not actually working anymore. And I'm like, okay, it was a cool idea. It didn't work. It's been 5 years. Now you need to find something
Something
different.
else. Yeah.
So I like that idea. I mean, I have some short stories and things I can do, but I guess I'm just saying this because your co-op is new. It's like, put in a way to look and evaluate things and change them up and try new things, just in like a very sensible, non-hair pulling out way, where you just all go, what's working, what's not working, what can we try next? And if you've got a bunch of people, it's going to be so much easier than one person.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a little bit after 8. I don't know if there was a problem getting this started or what. I was sitting
I
there.
had trouble getting on.
Okay, I was sitting there for 20 minutes, and then the back end person said, I can't get in. So then I got off and got back on. So I don't know if I did something wrong or not, but if you want to go a little bit longer with this, I'm fine with it. So it's up to you. And if 8 o'clock is your hard out, that's fine too.
I'm okay.
I don't know what was going on. I think I was sitting in the right place, but I didn't see anybody come on. So, and I think this is a useful discussion.
I'm happy to continue talking for a bit.
So we talked about the art of it, like always trying to get a little bit better, maybe not holding on to your novel for 30 or 40 years till a friend takes it out of your hands, sends it to another. There are real stories where authors did that, and some of them are bestsellers. You only know the bestsellers. So we talked about feedback, which is important. We just touched on email lists, which is really important. So how about accounting systems? How do you keep track of your to make sure that you're making money, not losing tons? I actually just found something called the Author's Helper. It's an app, and you can put your numbers in and it does little things for it. It costs money though, so people with Excel skills can do it for themselves.
Yeah, I use Auto Helper Suite too as well. I actually don't like them. I'm thinking of getting rid of them. Mostly because they don't let you download your information again. which is really annoys me. It's like, this is my information. Why can't you just let me download them after I've uploaded all of it?
Oh, you mean on Neatly? Well, I mean, I still have it. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, no,
I
I
download
have
it for
all
you.
of it. But it's all in raw form, right? I haven't uploaded. Auto Helper Suite has all my information back in. But I have two major, well, three major systems really. Auto Helper Suite is mostly for revenue. We don't really use it for anything other than revenue and ad tracking expenses and seeing for click-through rates. For my projects that I don't know will make money on, I use Excel, and it's a very basic Excel, and it's direct expenses only. So we keep track of revenue. Actually, we just pull out the revenue that we have from Auto Helper Suite because it's all updated there. But we keep track of revenue, and then expenses like proofing, editing, covers, whatever, that is directly. I don't bother with advertising revenue directly anymore for most of those because we don't spend more. It's a hard rule, generally speaking, that we don't spend more money on advertising than what we're already earning. So really what we're looking for is the break-even point. Once a project breaks even, I don't care anymore. We can stop tracking it because every dollar is extra now. But there are projects that I've just written for fun, which I don't know is going to ever make money. Translations, audiobooks for certain ones, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there's the actual accounting system, which is done by QuickBooks, because taxes and what I charge the business is very different from, tracking whether or not my business is making money, whether the books are making money. So it's kind of two different things. And if you don't
That's a
understand
good way
why
to think about it. I like that.
yeah,
I like thinking about it that way, to separate that out.
yeah, I mean, it's as a corporation, we're incorporated. You can do a lot of things, right? I can charge my coffee. I can charge my meals out. I bought a whole bunch of books today. I'm going to charge the business for all of it, because both books were history books, which I'm going to be using and referencing. So yeah, definitely a business expense. And the government can fight me on it if they want to.
Yeah, yeah, I can't even imagine. So you're incorporated. And
Yeah.
Isabella, you're looking at basically, I would say, just a simple spreadsheet for you, which is, what did you pay for your cover, which is very beautiful? What did you, pay for your edits? Anything that you pay for, and then, if my recommendation is set a budget for your advertising and then figure out what's going to fit into that budget, and then look to see how that fixes your sales at the point you're ready for that. But so that, eventually you're looking to sort of earn back so that you can celebrate. My book paid for itself. Yay. But then, then you go on for okay, you want to make $1 million with that book. Yeah, sure. It's always good to dream, but from someone who did not pay attention to the business side of this for a really long time, I say do it from the beginning. But don't, I mean, QuickBooks is, unless you're an accountant and you love QuickBooks and you already, I know. Well, so your co-ops, it's tricky because you have to have something in place that you can all operate with. But the simpler, the better, because you'll just make yourself crazy. I really do recommend the Author's Helper, but I know there's something else out there that does a similar thing. And I've seen it online.
Report has is beginning to pool expenses, sorry, not expenses, revenue from all the wide companies. Scribe Count does that too, but I actually prefer
Scribe Count and who else?
Book Report.
Book report. Okay.
I actually prefer book report. Nice thing about book report, it's free. Up until you make it your first $1,000, believe it's $1,000 a month, or might be $1,000 a year. I think it might be $1,000 a year. It's been a while since I've had to, since I've reached that amount. But it is free for a certain level. So, and they do very pretty graphs and so on and so forth. So they're actually really nice to look at. And you can add specific attributes that you want. And as I said, they're beginning to pull data from all the wide people. So I actually would almost, unless you need to go and track expenses and advertising stuff and whatnot, I almost prefer them now over Auto Helper Suite.
So that's an idea for the co-op, is as a co-op, you may be able to approach some of these companies that do things for, you know, authors.
We do have an accounting system at the co-op, and keeps track of the sales and all the rest of it. You know, internal costs for editing and so forth.
And
But
it's not too time consuming for you guys.
no, I mean, we do have some extra funds. It's part of the reason what's interesting about a co-op, because it's not just the book business, it's a broader co-op, and so it has funding sources that are outside of the publishing arm.
That's nice.
But so I keep track of my own costs internally with an Excel, you know, just a very simple system. But I'm still a long way from breaking even, as you say. On my first novel, we'll see how this. I'm hoping the second one may. I'll probably fix the book price. We'll fix the book price higher because we were a bit too, you know, the sort of margin for
So
profit.
that's always a back and forth, right? You really never know. And that's the good thing about being able to play with it. And even in your co-op, even though, you know, you have to go through a couple of hoops, you can't just jump on and change it.
No, they're talking about a second edition of my first book that
Oh, wow.
and update the cost of it for the
The physical, so you're finding you're doing most of your sales physically?
I have to say, mostly, I've always thought ebooks should, I mean, I read mostly ebooks, but most of the sales are still paper, you know, paper copies.
Well,
That's
that
interesting.
might have something to do with your marketing channels.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because for most people that I know who do successfully, their majority of their sales are digital. The amount varies by genre. I know someone, but I think the highest I know of with physical is generally 30 to 40% only. And that's the highest top end people who still get distributed into bookstores. Michael J. Sullivan is who I'm thinking of specifically in this case. Though Ryan Cahill has something like 20% of his sales through print, which is ridiculous to me. Because he's
It could depend on
just
the age of your readers too. If you skew older, they often will like paperbacks.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm not thinking that your readers are skewing older. Do you do a lot of like selling it at locations like cons and things like that?
Things, yeah, that's what I've been doing.
So what that says to me is you guys have a lot of marketing movement in the ebook area. So learn from your people who are buying it, you know, in person. Who are they? Where do they hang out? And then figure out your marketing from there.
I would be interested to see your cover. A lot of times when I hear that someone's not able to sell online, it's quite possible that the cover isn't hitting the right genre tropes for someone to be able to sell online. Because you have to remember, when you're in person, you can sell the book to them, right? And what a book looks like in your hand is actually going to look very different compared
If
to
you can
a
share your
thumbnail
screen and
about
show
that
us
big.
your cover, that you have that ability.
Yeah.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
maybe simplest would be to split it up.
Yeah, I cannot believe.
Because that's true. Sometimes even a paperback cover will look beautiful as a paperback and not look beautiful as an ebook cover.
Biggest thing that I find a lot of people forget to do is switch their the cover to black and white and then shrink it down to about that size, because that's what you're seeing when you're browsing on your phone or your Kindle. Yeah, well, your phone you will have color, but in Kindle it'll be black and white. And so if it doesn't have enough contrast, it won't sell in a Kindle. And if it isn't clear when it's, you know, a thumbnail this big or smaller, it's not going to sell because again, you can't see it. And it's particularly interesting to me because we were complaining about a friend's cover. Okay. Can you say something so that it'll pop it to become larger?
If you, oh, okay. Can we, here, let me see if I can put you in focus or something.
No. Okay.
So it's hard if you pull it back a little bit so we can see it from farther away. It's like you can't make it smaller. Your name disappears. I mean,
Okay.
I
mean, in the hard, you know, in the physical copy, it looks very good, but
I bet.
you're right, on the ebook, it may be not quite so compelling.
I'm gonna be a little blunt here. I hope I don't offend you. This type of top and bottom cover thing is what I see with the Kindle cover designer system. That is very common. Where they'll put this black stripe on the top, black stripe on the bottom, and it's that automated option that they have. So I've seen that in a lot of those basically no cost covers. And so when I see something like that with a pretty picture, it makes me think that you've paid almost nothing on your covers. And it looks, especially online, it looks cheap and not very professional.
It was done by professionals and not at all by.
I'm giving you that impression. What I would recommend is look at your genres that is supposed to be listed out. Take a look at the top 10 or top 20 covers in there, which for the books that are meant to be in there, because there's a lot of weirdness with genres. But for the books that are meant to be there, the top 20 covers, and then take the top 4 or 4 of them that you like and stick them, or well, like it's not exactly, but you know, a representative, and then stick your cover right next to it, right? Line them all up and stick your cover there. I will bet that your cover will not look like those other 4, which is what's gonna affect your sales, because it doesn't look like that genre, right?
Right.
And that's a big problem because people online take 0.5 of a second to make a decision and then they move on.
Right.
I'm going to say this is one of the hardest things about the biz is to be really honest about your covers and your blurbs. And it's almost like you yourself, you can't judge. You're gonna have emotional ties to things. And I hate this because I all the time, you know, people will tell me and I won't listen. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm not listening to something I need to listen to because I have learned that you need to listen. And I really do believe if you have any budget, and with a co-op, you might have a budget to do this, is do a test of a couple different covers and see which one people actually click on and buy the book from. It's worth it to do that. If you're if you're not sure, especially for the first book in a series, because you're going to be you know, every book needs to look like it belongs. in
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
I think if you, I don't know if that artwork is something that someone created in the center, or if it's
It's just an artist who did it.
okay. So hopefully they have it in a larger size, because that's the cover, the art is beautiful.
Yep.
But that borders does not do it good. I would almost pull it out and
Yep.
expand it, and then try layering good typography on it. The typography is, I feel, almost a little dated as well. That might be what you're going for, because I don't know your book and your genre. So, but I would look at potentially changing the typography a little bit. But if you pull it out and change the typography, I would almost expect that you would see sales beginning to start trickle in already.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
I can show you what I mean. If you want to ping me, and I've got access to Photoopia and Photoshop and Design, and I can play with it really quickly, to show you what I mean if you don't understand. But yeah. And by the way, I say all of this, and I have screwed up covers myself. I literally have a blog post about how I was complaining about a series not selling, and then a bunch of people said, "Well, your covers suck." So I was like, "No, it can't be." And then I went and changed the covers, and then sales tripled, literally, overnight, once I, started promoting it again. So covers make a big difference, and even someone who has quite a degree of experience at it, I would say, and art and whatnot, can still screw up.
It's just you're communicating a lot with the cover. The reader, and readers of our genres read a lot, right? There really aren't many casual science fiction fantasy readers. And so they're so used to picking up the clues on the covers that you are like communicating in a special language to your reader. And if you get the language wrong, they're like, oh, foreigner, maybe not right for me, right? And you can get them past that, like at your table, if they're coming to your table and someone's saying, oh no, this is a great book about X, they stop looking at the cover and they think, oh, I like X, so I'll do that. But if you're selling online, you don't get as much opportunity to correct them. So
And
everything
physical,
has to match.
yeah.
When they click on the cover, they have to go to a blurb that actually reflects the cover, and then the price has to be right. So it's like all this. This is the part of the business that feels like alchemy, right? And we just really want, okay, where is the mage who will make this work for us and get our book selling? Which is the last part that I think we need a whole nother session for, so I don't want to get into that. Does anybody have a specific business question that they were interested in covering that we didn't cover? All right, well,
maybe
that's
can
good.
I just ask, yeah, for the conferences or book fairs, so do you like schedule regular ones, or to attend, or also you put as a part of the budget, maybe something like that?
That's an interesting question. I didn't go to a conference, a business conference, or even a business. So there's two types of conferences, right? That's the fun conferences like Dragon Con and World Fantasy and so and so forth. And then there's the indie business conferences like formerly 20 books to 50K and the Nebulas and whatnot. I didn't go to either one of them until 2 years into the business myself. Partly because I was just too busy writing. And these
So
days
we're
I
going to
do
talk
go,
about that next month, though, because I
yeah,
think what you're asking, Isabella, is selling at like conferences and things, selling your books at conferences and how to know where to sell them. Okay, I just want to make sure
yeah,
because
that's a different question.
I have never, I mean, well, I shouldn't say never. I rarely sell my books in real life, and I'm actually trying to change that, which I don't know if personality wise I'll be able to, but other people are really successful at it, right? So it's partly a personality thing and partly an audience thing. So you should look for something that's close by, matches your book's audience, and isn't very expensive. You might even look to see if there's somebody who already has a table, because tables usually cost money, and just say, I'll help pay for the table and I'll help man it. And, we can sell our books there. A lot of times that works. And then just test and see if you like it. Because if you just sit down and put a paper bag over your head, no one is going to buy your books. And you would laugh, but basically, essentially, that's what I do when I go in real life, unless I have friends who like force me to get out of it. What is the co-op doing for that? Do you
I
a
mean,
really
we
good
are trying
marketer?
to spread out. So we go to, each of us goes to different conferences, and we're selling each other's books as well as our own books. So
That's really cool.
there's an attempt to get some more mileage out of that.
Oh, that's a nice way to do it.
I have done a conference, as you say, where I bought half a table from somebody else and did that. But I found the conference where I hadn't been able to organize for me to present it at the conference. And it seemed to me that those who had a session where they were talking about their work to the conference at some point had much more success selling the books over the counter than I did without having that channel. And so in future, I'm not expecting to go back to a conference unless I can get some sort of exposure through the conference itself.
Yeah, I can see
That's
that.
a really good point. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying that's I can see how that's important. I just want to say quickly to Isabella, since I've got this, definitely talk to the people next week about it. I don't do a lot of sales at conferences, but if you've got a local conferences, look for what they call artist tables. For the big fan expos, comic cons and whatnot, they have artist tables, and those are often much, much, much cheaper than the vendor booths. The vendor booths can be like 500 to $1,000 to $2,000 per booth. The artist tables can start at $25 to $50 per table, and so your buy-in is so much cheaper. The other thing to note is definitely do a local con. The moment you have to pay for accommodations and travel, it completely knocks your numbers completely out. And very few people I know who do conventions outside of who have to pay for all of those things make money. Many of them have multiple books to sell and lots, and or they're selling paranormal romance right now, and monster sex.
But that's the thing, because you need your inventory, because most people want, paperbacks. And, so that's going to cost you, even if you're local, you have to get it printed and things like that. But you can actually have a friend, and she does cozy mysteries. So they're not, it's a different audience, but she goes to like craft fairs and she makes bank, and it's just local craft fairs in her area, but they just love a little cozy mystery, so you don't, it's the thing is like for something like that, it's almost, you're just experimenting to see who's interested. Because you're just taking an afternoon, you know, like 2 hours in an afternoon to see who's interested in your book. But there's, and we'll talk about this next month, but there's things you can do. Like people get banners but your table needs to actually like attract people. And it doesn't need expensive things. I mean, if you're talented at that, it just needs a tablecloth and the books to be set up attractively. But there's a lot of other things you can do that are like advertisements to kind of encourage people. Oh, that looks interesting. I'll come a little closer to that table, because readers really do seem to be very scared to come close to the table because you might suddenly suck them in like a vacuum cleaner and make them buy all your books. I don't know what they worry about, but it is funny. It's like once you get them close enough you could talk to, they could usually have a good conversation whether you sell a book or not.
Yeah. That's a lot of little tricks that you can do when you're selling at a table. Saying hi to everyone and standing up.
Yeah, I mean, they're really little tricks and they seem sensible, but then you're like, you turn your back to everybody because you don't want to, you're like, oh, there's all these people going by. So it's, you know, if you're on the spectrum, it's a little harder. If you're not on the spectrum, you know, it's not necessarily as hard. But I'm annoyed that I haven't done more of it. And this is pre-COVID. I could have done more. In Maine, mystery is a big deal, and I have a Maine mystery series. So it's like I could have gotten myself invited to some of these things, but I was afraid of it. Oh no, 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 no. So I only did it when a friend invited me. So be proactive and think about what you like. And maybe once your book is done, and I will say this about the business, I don't know if everybody agrees, but when you do your paperback version, order a copy, go through it like a proofreader, fix everything that needs to be fixed, order another copy, make sure everything that needed to be fixed is fixed. And once you get that copy where you're like, yeah, this is good, I fixed everything, then order your box of books, however many you're going to order. Because I know too many people, despite my telling them not to do that, who ordered a box full of books that had big typos in them. So, you know, you can always sell them as, oh, I forget what they call it, but there's a name for books that have glaring errors.
Yeah.
It's like a little special, but as an author, you prefer not to do that. And it's so easy to just be like, yeah, this is fine. I swear I have to like tie myself down to go through the whole book to make sure it's okay. And you have to look at things that you don't normally look at, like, you know, the spine. Is the spine really correct or not? When you open the book, do you have to like break the spine to read the inner lines and things like that? There's just a lot of little, sorry, things that people actually recognize in real life when they're looking at the book and picking it up. Okay, I think that's a signal that we're done. Thank you guys for putting up with whatever that was that happened.
No
That
worries.
made it late.
I was just seeing you all. Take care.
I'm glad it came,
Thank
even
you,
though I
thank
thought it
you.
was the end, but it was great.
Thank you. Sorry. Great ending. All right.